Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a mixed meeting this evening. This is an all-committee meeting and council included, and so we have quite a long agenda, so we are going to get started promptly. This is meeting number 9 in our series of meetings. Today is Monday, July 13th, and we're going to begin this meeting with O Canada, so I'll ask you to stand if you're able, please. Tonight, O Canada is Cairn Christian School. So for those of you who are attending a first meeting in West Lincoln, we have been rotating O Canada through our local schools, and so that was Cairn. So before beginning this meeting, I would like to make the following announcements. Comments from the public for a matter that's on the agenda may be provided in person by attending the meeting and advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of the agenda. For those individuals that are unable to attend the meeting in person, comments may be submitted for matters that are on the agenda by either 1, emailing jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and read into the public record, or alternatively, by contacting the Clerk's Department to request a Zoom link to attend the meeting virtually. Additionally, this meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the Township's website by visiting events.westlincoln/meetings. So we'll open our meeting this evening with the land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the regional municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. And I'll turn to Councillor Rayner. You have the opening petition this evening, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We gather together here today, intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faith give us strength to act honestly and well in all manners before us.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of Council, are there any changes in order of items on the agenda this evening? Okay, and seeing none, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest? Okay, thank you. So a standing item on our agenda is a request to address items on the agenda. So requests to address items on the agenda are restricted to specific items as follows, section 6.7 of our procedural bylaw. 6.7 states that there shall be no comments from the public permitted at council unless A, a specific appointment has been scheduled, or B, an item is included in the other business, communications, or appointments section of the agenda and relates to a matter that would normally be dealt with at committee. So are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted by section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? And seeing no one in person, Kevin, is there anyone online?
Not seeing any, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So another thing this committee meeting this evening makes a little bit different is that we sort of have a meeting within a meeting. And so we are going to turn now to item 7 on the agenda, which is a public meeting. And so that public meeting is a separate meeting and is scripted. So I'm going to turn to that, and we'll proceed with the public meeting portion first. So again, under the Planning Act requirements, this is a public meeting to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by the owners of 5167 Canberra Road, Concession 3, Part Lot 12, file number 1601-004-26, who are requesting a zoning bylaw amendment from institutional, I, to core commercial, C1, with site-specific exception. The Planning Act requires in Section 34, subsection 12, and Section 39 that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, Council must hold a public meeting for the purpose of informing the public. The purpose of this public meeting is to receive comments from the public and is the only opportunity to provide Council feedback with respect to the application. It is the function of Council to listen to public comments and ask questions of clarification only. It is not the function of Council to debate the merits of the application during the public meeting or respond to questions posed by the public during this public meeting. Should the public have any questions on the application, please contact planning staff and they will provide any information being requested. Please be aware that Council debate of the application will occur later in this meeting when the accompanying recommendation report regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is presented. In accordance with the Planning Act and the Minister, the applicant or specified person, public body, or registered landowner of any land to which the bylaw amendment will apply, who made oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to Council prior to the adoption and/or passage of the bylaw, may appeal the bylaw amendment to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So I'm going to turn to the clerk. And clerk, would you please advise the method and dates by which notice of the public meeting was given?
Proper notice was given by way of email circulation to agencies and mail circulation to all residents within 120 meters of the subject property on June 8th, 2026. Public notice was also posted to the subject property, the Township website, and the Township Administration Building on June 8th, 2026.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn to our Manager of Community Planning and Design, Susan Smythe. And will you please, Susan, explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Thank you.
A little bit of musical chairs, Susan.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council and those in the gallery. This is a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by KCAG Solutions as the agent on behalf of Dufferin Lodge, referred as Masonic Lodge, the owner, which is located at 5167 Canberra Road in the hamlet of Wellandport. The subject lands are located on the north side of Canberra Road, with Wellandport Road to the east and Lincoln Street to the west. Surrounding land uses are predominantly core commercial and low-density residential. The property has a lot area of 197.82 square meters or 0.02 hectares, with a lot frontage of 10.2 meters along Canberra Road. The property contains a building of which has historically been used for local community Masonic Lodge to host events and educational activities. The existing building was originally across the road, then was moved in 1914 to its current location after a fire consumed most of the town. This means that the members of this Masonic Lodge have served the West Lincoln community for over 120 years. So even the proceeds of the pending sale of the property are designated to be distributed back to the community, as they have pledged to give back 60% of the sale proceeds to West Lincoln and 30% in the Niagara region, leaving only 10% designated to the provincial division of the Masonic organization. So since Masonic principles aim to make good men better by cultivating virtues such as integrity, compassion, respect, and charity, These values guide members in personal conduct, relationships, and societal contributions, creating a framework for ethical living, spiritual reflection, and meaningful community engagement. So knowing this, we kindly request that council consider reducing the rezoning application fees. The total amount paid to West Lincoln for this application was $11,150. Please consider if there is a possibility of receiving a portion of that back to be distributed back to the West Lincoln community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from council to the? Nothing further. I think that's good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So the floor is now open for members of the public to come forward and provide council with any oral or written submissions, either in person or on Zoom, pertaining to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. When coming forward to speak, please provide your full name. Speakers will be allowed up to 5 minutes to make comments to council, after which council may ask questions of clarification related to the submission. Individuals are allowed to speak once to an application. So is there anyone present this evening who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing no one. Kevin, is there anyone online?
Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So that takes us a long way down our script then, and so I'm going to say that if necessary, the applicant is now invited to provide any closing comments to respond to any new information. We had nothing new, but I'm going to just ask, Kim, if there's anything further that you wish to say? No. Nothing? Okay, thank you. And anyone from administration, anything further to say? Okay, thank you. So please be advised that a recommendation report will be brought forward during this council meeting, whereby council will have the opportunity to debate the merits of this application and decide upon its recommendation. Please be advised that if you wish to be further notified of this application, to sign the sheet at the side table near the council doors. And seeing nothing further, that was a very quick meeting. I will adjourn that public meeting at the hour of 6:46. Thank you. And so that takes us back to the regular portion of our meeting. And as I stated under 6.7, a young man approached me a while back about an idea that he had and asked about the process that needed to be followed. And I'm very pleased to say that he actually did follow the process. He reached out to the clerk's office and found out how he should go about this. And so, Sean, I'm going to welcome you, please, to the presenter's chair. Sometimes it doesn't run that smoothly, Sean, so thank you for following what you needed to do.
Of course. Hello. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Township staff, and members of the public. I wanted to speak today about an idea I had. Thank you. Oh, just losing my papers here. I wanted to speak an idea I had walking on my way uptown past the previous rail train bridge that was taken down before I was born, and about an idea for a mural at that location. The address is at the corner of Regional Road 20 and Dennis Drive. The Niagara Open Data, the traffic data, gave it an annual average daily traffic rating or number for 10,000 people traveled on that road daily. And that's just vehicles. That doesn't count cyclists, pedestrians, or anyone else traveling through that corridor. It's one of the 3 major east-west corridors in the township, which means it's in a very prominent location. I included photos of the 3 retaining walls that are left. There were 4, but after the Dennis Drive development, the 1 was removed. And I also included a map that shows residents and businesses within 150 and 250 meters, as they're with that new development and the Legion Villa. There's a few other businesses as well. There's public input to be considered. So my idea, and people I was talking with, was a mural or a public art installation on the retaining walls. Could showcase West Lincoln's agricultural heritage, the landscape, and the community character. Oh, I'm on the wrong page here. And it could create opportunities for local artists, schools, service clubs, and businesses for sponsorship, and residents to participate in the design or creation process. I also have some real-world examples from all over the place. There's one I really want to highlight specifically is Pelham, which in December 2024 hosted a paint and skate night to do a community paint by numbers mural, which the township had approved, or their council approved the design, and they had, I believe, 95 volunteers do 136 hours of painting. So it gave actual community members a chance to participate in the process. The timeline for the Pelham project, they had applied for an Ontario Art Council grant in February 2024, and the mural was completed and installed in January of 2025. So 11 months, less than a year for full implementation. And I was looking at different implementation options. You could just do a painted mural. You could do panels with steel structural support. There's different cost options. You could also do a hybrid design as well. And I was looking at funding sources, and there are a couple grants from the Ontario Arts Council, the Niagara Community Foundation, along with the potential for community sponsorships, the township's capital beautification budget, volunteer fundraising in the form of actually painting the mural, and along with volunteer labor, which would be cost reductive. And there's ways to get community input in the process. You could do public surveys, community workshops, online submissions of ideas, themes, sketches, or even like Pelham did, paint by numbers to get the community involved. There were some concerns I heard though, one of the main ones being the winter elements, which would favor the steel framework so that you could take it down in the winter so it doesn't get destroyed. Other concerns I heard were vandalism and visibility. I know there are already lights there, but those could be considered at a later time. As far as why this matters, I think it matters because it's a prominent area in the center of town with only 3 ways to go east-west. That's the main route. And we just have these, I don't want to say, less than beautiful concrete walls that we could do something with and repurpose from the former rail infrastructure that they were. Along with this, we could showcase West Lincoln's agricultural heritage and our history and identity by the art we choose. It could be done through council, figuring out how it's done. It would support local artists and community participation. Creates a lasting community landmark, and repurposes former infrastructure for public benefit. I'm not asking council to approve a design or approve funding or even commit to it. I just want to ask council to look at ownership, feasibility, potential funding opportunities, and the maintenance considerations. And I wanted to present all this information, get the ball rolling. I'm not an expert in any of the fields I discussed, but I just did some research, looked up some things, and I thought it'd be a nice idea. So I wanted to bring that forward, and I can take any questions if council has any.
Thank you, Sean, for your presentation. Members of council, is there somebody who has a question for Sean or a comment about his idea? We'll start with Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To you, to Sean, thank you so much for bringing this forward and really grabbing the bull by the horns. I think, when we look at what we're going to do and try from the side of beautification to our community, I definitely think this is a very good option, or at least an idea to pursue. So I guess, Madam Mayor, if I can, I realize we don't really have an item on the table or anything. Would I bring that under a new item of business to perhaps provide a resolution to direct staff to look into what the next steps would be if we wanted to pursue this? I'm just looking more procedurally what the best course would be.
I think we can do that. I think tonight the intent from my understanding with Sean, is really just get people thinking about it.
Yeah.
And move forward. I'm not sure that staff have the time at this point with an election coming up and the other obligations we have with AMO. And
Yes.
I'm not sure who would be able to do that. I know that there are several initiatives ongoing right now that our staff are looking at. And there are certainly some things that we need to consider here, but I think that this is more something that we'll be looking at for another.
So the
council.
question, kind of, I think we're in the same wavelength I was as far as AMO goes, because I know we have one of our delegations has to deal with the Ministry of Sport and Rec. And so I was wondering if we had a chance to have this referred back to staff, there'd be no urgency to come back to this anytime in the immediate future, get through the election stuff, and we can have this kind of come back, whether it's around Christmas or shortly after into the new, kind of test the waters with some of the other matters we have there. So I just want to be a little proactive here. I realize we've got an election to deal with, but we don't want this to kind of, we've got a great presentation, don't want it to kind of fall
We
on the
don't
back burner.
want it, we don't want it to
forgotten
drop,
about.
and I
Yeah.
think, I understand that perspective. One of the small hurdles, I don't know how large that hurdle will be, is that we don't own that infrastructure.
Yes, well, that's the
And so,
part of the fact-finding we need to
so
bring
there's a bit more than just asking staff to investigate.
Yeah.
That's still on regional property. That probably won't be a big deal, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to just make sure staff have heard. All our senior staff pretty much are here. Our CAO certainly has heard the presentation. I don't think Sean's going to go away anywhere. And I think
I'm
he's
not
well
moving.
aware of the timing. At one point in time, we were just hoping to have him come perhaps in August or September. We didn't really know, but he was ready, and we had the spot this evening. So I don't think there's a rush,
Okay.
but I do 100% agree that we don't want to lose
So-
sight of the idea.
I would ask, Madam Mayor, with you back to Sean there, is that make sure you stay honest. You come back early in the new year, make sure this hasn't slipped our radar. There's a lot of moving parts going on right now, as the mayor mentioned, and then that way between you championing that, it brings it fresh to whoever that new council is, and then you guys will be better positioned at that point to pursue it. But thank you.
It also
Thank you.
gives us an opportunity. If you recall, we have a new member of our staff who actually does explore grants.
Yes.
And so there might be a way that it could be just be put on her radar as well to keep an eye out for.
But we don't actually have that policy. This is just a presentation. So I do think before we can kind of go too far down this rabbit hole, we do need to give staff direction at the appropriate time. Maybe it doesn't need to be tonight, but to be able to have that set up, because I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a load of wonderful examples, but we're not going to have the policy, or the council at the time's not going to have the policy to guide them, and so it's going to create another hurdle later. So again, I think we're
There are
kind of.
many steps, Councilor, you're right.
And I realize we don't own that property, and I think the clerk's department probably has to reach out to the region to figure out what their steps are as far as what that goes. Like, there's a lot of other moving parts before we get there. I want to make sure that they're not starting from scratch.
There are a lot of moving pieces. It's a big project. It doesn't sound like a big project, but it's a very large project. And you can't research a grant before you have those details, because, grants are very specific, and all of the details have to be available. So there's a lot of work to be done before we're ready to see this. And so, would this have been better to come to the new council? Perhaps. But in the meantime, many of us hopefully will be returning. Okay, thank you. So Councillor Wittavine's point is well taken in that this is the week. So tomorrow will be the first of the two regional meetings that he would have reported on. We're a little bit early in this cycle for his report. And Wednesday, the other two committee meetings, so that's understandable. So item 10 on our agenda are the council minutes from June 22nd. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution, please?
I do, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes relating to the June 22nd, 2026 council meeting be accepted.
Thank you. And someone to second those minutes, please? Councillor Maychak, thank you. Are there any questions or comments regarding those minutes? And seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please. Okay, so the first vote is usually a little bit slower, but hopefully it will come up on everyone's tablet. It's taking a while. Oh, there we go. Does everybody have it? Okay, so that carries. Item 11 on our agenda is communications, and there are no communications this evening. Item 12 are my remarks, and I do have them, although they are certainly shorter than, with the time frame being shorter. So this evening in my remarks, I want to highlight a few events since our last council meeting on June 22nd by beginning with our Community Volunteer Recognition Awards on the evening of June 23rd. An event of that size and significance doesn't happen without time, effort, and planning. And so I would like to thank the committee members, Councillors William Riley and Joanne Cheetock, Executive Assistant Jackie Thrower, and Communications Specialist Beth Audette, and also our always ever ready additional help on the day of, Director of Legal and Legislative Services Jessica Dyson, and Manager of Legal and Legislative Services / Clerk Justin Palov, for doing all of the work to organize, prepare both materials and food, set up, and clean up for this event. Staff at our West Lincoln Community Center need to be recognized as well for their cooperation and support in preparing the space for this amazing community event. Thank you also to Director of Community and Protective Services Cynthia Summers and Councillors Greg Maychak and Jason Trombetta for joining us to help celebrate our amazing community volunteers for 2026. Together, I think we managed to both thank and honor each of the recipients for their efforts to make our community a better place for all of us. On Wednesday, June 24th, CAO McBride and I, along with Councillor Cheetock, who is a member of the Grand Erie Board of Directors, were pleased to represent West Lincoln at the Grand Erie Business Center's annual general meeting. There's also already been a great deal of back and forth in emails and on social media about our Canada Day celebrations, which were brought to a complete and sudden halt by a nasty turn in the weather. I do, however, want to publicly commend our recreation staff on two fronts. The first being for the many and varied fantastic events that were planned for that day. And secondly, but probably more importantly, considering the circumstances of that furious storm that hurt our community, for their quick yet calm manner in ensuring the safety of all in attendance on the Leisureplex grounds during that time period. What an example of effective and efficient teamwork. As an aside, I should also point out that Councillor Riley was also a huge help in checking on others during the chaos created by the storm. So thank you, Councillor. As many of you may be aware, Niagara Region has had an ongoing strategy to try to attract new family doctors to our region. On Thursday, I was pleased to represent West Lincoln at an orientation dinner for a large group of new residents who have just begun their three-year residency in family medicine at various hospitals in Niagara. In attendance also were some of their preceptors at the various hospitals, including Dr. Matt Noble-Walmut. Some of you might know him as Dr. Matt at our local clinic. Oversees residents in various hospitals, including West Lincoln Memorial. A few of the residents are back home in Niagara after attending medical school elsewhere, and others are new to the region, but hopefully will like Niagara well enough to stay after the completion of the residency. As an upcoming item of interest, I also want to inform Council that the editor of Business View magazine, in which West Lincoln was featured in the May 2025 edition, is once again interested in doing a follow-up story under the auspices of Minister Vic Fideli's Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade portfolio. We should learn more about this focus during the next few weeks, but in the meantime, our communications specialist is busy taking photos of some of the ongoing work in West Lincoln, including both private and public finance capital projects, in anticipation of this article, which is expected to once again be about 4 to 6 pages in length. So when we know more about that, we will tell you about that, but it's a nice opportunity to showcase West Lincoln. And that is the end of my remarks for this evening. So it takes us to reports of committee, and there are several. So we'll start with growth and sustainability. Senior planner was Madison Etzel, but Director of Growth and Sustainability, Garrett Borma. The recommendation report, PD-21-2026, zoning bylaw amendment for 5167 Canberra Road, file number 1601-004-26. And so I should change that, Susan, to put your name there. Okay. So, Councillor Cheetock, you have the resolution. We'll get that on the floor, and then we'll go to staff.
I do, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself. The recommendation report, PD 21-2026, titled Recommendation Report Zoning Bylaw Amendment for 5167 Canberra Road, file number 160004-26, dated July 13th, be received, and that the application for the zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1601-004-26, to rezone the property from institutional bracket I to site-specific core commercial C1-260 be approved in accordance with the attached amending zoning bylaw and schedule, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary bylaw.
Thank you. Someone to second that, please? Councillor Broderick? Okay, I'm going to go back to our staff to see if there are any further comments about this that either of you wish to make. No? Okay, are there any questions from members of council? This is the application, of course, that we just heard in our public meeting. Councillor Chichok, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, it's not a question, and it's not a request of council. It's merely to say to the members of Dufferin Lodge who are here, who have, with their fellow Masons over the years, provided a service to the communities of West Lincoln and thereabouts, have honored many of the men who came out to make a better world for themselves and for the community, and to the Masonic Lodge itself, who have done tremendous work in West Lincoln and also the community surrounding us. I wish to commend you on the fact that you almost reached a full 120 years of service to the community, and congratulate you for finding a way to have your members find places elsewhere in the Masonic Lodges in the abutting communities of Dunville, Pelham, and I believe there's a few more. So it's good to know that the work still goes on, and congratulations on your decisions in making this finality that will give back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anything further from Councillor Bradford?
Through you, Mayor, to the members of the Masonic Lodge that are here tonight, I'd like to just echo Councillor Chichuk's words on the generous ongoing support of the community, not just our local community, but broader. I have family members that are Masons, so I certainly understand the hard work that goes behind and the charitable opportunities that you provide, not just the local community, but broader community as well. I would like to put forward an opportunity for an add-on to the recommendation, if that's at all possible, for a reduction in the fees that that are being paid that have been paid for this severance or rezoning.
Zoning change?
I guess looking to the clerk for.
And I too would be looking to the clerk to see how that can happen.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bradrick, while amendments are possible, I would have to defer to Garrett, because I believe there are some planning implications to deferring fees for certain zoning applications. Again, not an expert.
Okay, go ahead, please, Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it would be just my suggestion that council direct administration just to provide a separate report to what's here. And I don't know, I would have to ask the clerk of how to put that together here, because as the clerk did mention, there are some rules around bonusing and returning of fees, which I think we should explain in a report at a future council session if that is appropriate and council's direction.
Okay, so I think that that's understandable if we separate those two items for now, so that, and I was concerned about that when the request came forward as part of the planning meeting as well, the public meeting, that there might be some constraints that are beyond what we can do at this point in time. So I think if that's all right with you, Councillor, we let that stand. We leave this as it is for now with the intention of having staff go back to look into that.
Okay, that's great. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess does that require, like, that's going to be
Well,
under new business, or is that going to follow this?
No, they will need some time to look into that.
No,
So-
but sorry, I'm asking for the refer back, like that's something that has to be.
Okay, so we're not referring the issue, so we have to be
Okay.
really careful about the wording. Because
okay.
we want to deal with this.
So we're going to vote on this, and then we're going to have another
Well,
motion come forward.
Well, that's what I'm going to
Okay, so
turn
that's
to the
what I'm
clerk.
asking,
Don't
sorry.
try to pre-guess. I'm going to turn to the clerk and say, can we
So-
just have something,
Yes.
a third that says that staff is asking to look into that. and
Sorry, I was
come
trying
back
to say
with
through you
today.
to the clerk to get that clarification.
Yeah, but I'm in the chair. I'll do it.
Oh, no,
Thank
but
you. I know what you're
hold on,
saying.
Madam Mayor.
I know
I
what
was just
you're
trying to ask the
saying.
question, that's all it was.
And I get that, but the
Okay.
issue is this is a direct result of a public meeting, and we don't want to muddy those waters in any way. So we'll let that stand alone, but my question to the clerk was going to be, can we add a third thing that staff bring back a further report with a request made under this, because remember that request has nothing to do whatsoever
item.
with this issue. So we need to be able to look at that. So, Mr. Clark, do you have time to think about any of that?
Through the mayor, to Councilor Riley and to the benefit of the rest of council, an amending motion can be made. However, I would recommend the separation of the votes to signify a key separation of the business of authorizing the rezoning and then also advising staff to come back with a recommendation report or information report in regards to how that fee structure works. So while the amendment is possible, I'd recommend separating the votes so they're very clearly distinct.
So can we, under procedural bylaw, put in a number 3, vote on 1 and 2 separately? Okay, so can you add a third one? Please, we'll give you a second to do that, and that way we can see clearly what it is that we're doing. I think the intentions were clear. It's just about making sure that we do it properly. And if you think, once again, just as we're waiting for the clerk to do that, normally a recommendation report would come back at a further meeting, so it would be totally different, right?
Through the mayor, to Councilor Bradrick, as she was the one who had requested this, that administration returned to council at a future committee meeting to provide clarification in regards to the fee waiver request noted in the public meeting, and this will be voted on separately. So the rezoning can be voted on specifically, so council can whether approve or disapprove of that, and then this will follow that recommendation separately.
So our mover was Councillor Chichok, seconded by Councillor Bradrick. So Councillor Chichok, you're fine with the third piece being added, that we vote
I
on
will-
separately?
I will make the motion to be inclusive of the amendment that was put forward by Councilor Bradwick. So, yes,
So we're good, okay.
as long as we have our clerk's blessing that this is the appropriate place for us to put that in.
Two separate votes, fair enough. Okay, so the first will come up? No.
Through the mayor to the rest of council, the first vote will be the original motion on the floor, which is in regards to the rezoning as noted in the public meeting.
So you notice that 1 and 2 are there. Okay, so that carries, and the second portion of that then will be the recommendation that this go back to staff to come back to a future, it says committee meeting, so it could very likely be
This one
August.
actually is incorrect. I said I would move and add the amendment. So Shelley just amended my motion.
She was the one that brought it forward.
Well, but it was an amendment to the original motion that Shelley tried to bring forward, so.
I don't want to care, I just wanted to make sure we were correct. If you watch the movie, and if Councilor Bradford wishes to, we can say it's not an amendment, it is a new motion.
I thought that's what the clerk
That it
had
needed
said.
to be a new motion,
Correct.
yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
I heard
okay.
it as an amendment.
Okay, so this is another motion coming out, and this has to do, of course, with looking into the fee waiver to make sure that it's procedurally correct to do. Okay, everybody understands that? Okay, so the second clear vote, then go ahead, it's in front of you. Okay, and that also carries, thank you. Okay, so that has been dealt with. So we have another item under growth and sustainability this evening. It's an information report PD-25-2026. It's an information report regarding the Smithville PCB site, 2789 Thompson Road. And Councillor Trombetta, you have that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move by
Thank you
myself.
all for being here. Sorry, Councillor.
No problem. Moved by myself that information report PD 25-2026 titled Information Report, Smithville PCB Site, 2789 Thompson Road, dated July 13th, 2026 be received.
Thank you. And someone to second that? Councillor Chichok? Okay, so I'm going to go to our Director of Growth and Sustainability, Mr. Borisma.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Preliminary remarks.
Sorry?
Yeah, I said for your preliminary remarks.
Okay, yes, thank you. So I'd just like to briefly introduce to you Marcus Ruggiero. Did I do okay? Not great with the Italian last names. He's our intermediate planner. He is here with us for approximately a year to fill in some other positions that are vacant for various reasons. And he's been working hard in our department, and I wanted to introduce him to council and senior staff who may not have met him. And he prepared this report, and he has got a couple of summary remarks about it, and he's also willing to answer any questions.
Thank you. So welcome, Marcus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just add, since the motion, the groundwater monitoring wells indicate that site-specific contaminants, including PCBs and select chlorinated volatile organic compounds, have decreased significantly since this was discovered. And the PCB report further notes that materials contaminated or suspended to be contaminated with PCBs continue to be managed in accordance with applicable federal and provincial requirements. Thank you.
So are there any questions about that report? It was a very lengthy report. Did you learn a lot? We lived through that, some of us. So I'm sure in doing your background work on that, there was a lot of information there for you. Councillor Chichok.
Having lived here when the report originally started, yes, it certainly was a panic throughout this township, one that many people still think of with a bit of a tremor in their voice. But through you, Madam Mayor, what I see, Mr. Ruggiero, is that right?
Ruggiero.
All right,
Ruggiero.
there you go. I guess I do better with Polish names. And so is that the province still holds on to the fact that they will, in an ongoing method, continue to measure the output of those wells and continue to ensure that the PCB or the contaminant-laden materials, either suspended solids or fluid, are going to be monitored. That is my understanding. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that is correct. The MECP still remains in control of the site and oversees the operations there.
Right. That's great. And I think until they tell us it's well below zero, that people will not be comfortable. So thank you for your report. It was very comprehensive.
Anything further about the report? Okay, thank you. Well, I think then we're ready, Mr. Clerk. Thank you very much for your overview, but thank you for putting all that work into the report. The vote should be in front of you. And that carries. Okay. 13.2 on our agenda is Community and Protective Services Committee reports. And Fire Chief Hofsink, you are up. So your information report, WLFD-09-2026 monthly update. Councillor Trombetta, you have that to get that on the floor.
Yes. Moved by myself that the information report titled Monthly Update June 2026 dated July 13th, 2026 be received.
Thank you. And someone to second those? Councillor Riley, thank you. All right. Chief, do you have anything you'd like to say about your report before we get going?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Nothing specific this month, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions about the report? Again, Councillor Chichok.
Well, I have this piece of paper in front of me, through you, Madam Mayor, to our chief, that doesn't have any big title on it or anything, but I think, I'm not criticizing it, don't get me wrong. We've had years of people asking about these kinds of things, and I just couldn't let this go by quietly, Chief. I would presume that through continued work and insistence that our shared communications and call center has now provided you with a list of the dispatched calls to our people, and that's what we have in front of us.
Through you, Madam Mayor. It is. We have been providing the same information monthly, but this format is a result of some delays that are happening in St. Catharines. There's been some pretty substantial changes happening additional cities are being brought on to the dispatch center, so I think the staff is somewhat overwhelmed. So they weren't able to provide us with the call data that we would normally get, or at least in that format anyways.
So this is really good. This is
It
great.
is good.
It's here. It's
It's,
one page. I thought this was an improvement, so thank you very much.
Okay. Well, happy to please.
Okay, anyone else with question or comment? Councillor Bradford?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Through you to the chief, I just wanted to comment that the flowers on the outside of the fire hall are looking really nice.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Bradrick. Yes, facilities put those up for us. Actually, it was a little bit of a surprise. The ones on Station 1, actually, I think the ones on Station 2 as well, they're little fire truck cutouts. Yeah, I came in one morning and they were put up, and I sent a message to facilities right away, thank them for the the nice touch. It's really nice, yeah.
So I saw them putting up the first one and assumed it was going to be a chicken as I was coming in, that, you know, they were just working on it. But when I drove out, I saw that it was a fire truck.
Yeah.
But I was also pleased to see they were also on Station 2. That was
Yep.
a nice touch. Good.
Yep, they are.
Okay. Mike, go ahead. Councilor Rayner.
Madam Mayor, through to the chief. Is the iron in the water situation corrected in Station 2 now? Everything back on track? We're all good to go?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Rayner, the work for the issue with the cisterns is being scheduled now with the contractors. There are some delays due to summer vacations and so on, but there is additional work that still needs to be done. So that's being scheduled with contractors at this time.
Seems like a very long period of time.
It has been a long period of time. It's been a difficult process for sure.
Through you to the CAO, is there anything we can do to speed up the process on this? Like, this building was delayed a year and a half because of a whole bunch of problems that were totally embarrassing, especially in the private sector. This never would have happened. But the point is now, we've still got a problem. This is going on month after month, and it just seems like it's never ending when, to me, you go in, you fix the problem, you move on. Why is this continuing to be a thorn? Can we get past that with Station 2 so we can finally put this to bed and say the building is finally completely done? Because unless that cistern's corrected, the building really isn't finished yet, as far as I'm concerned, because it's not right.
Let the CAO respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Councillor Rayner. Certainly, administration is as frustrated as council is with the issues surrounding the matter. We have gotten good cooperation, though, from the contractors, and the contractors have taken on looking after the costs of the repairs. So they are cooperating with us, and we're moving as fast as we're able to move at the time. These things certainly are frustrating, and the lessons learned by staff on this are significant, and when we go to build another project, certainly the one Mr. DePaul is looking at, those lessons learned are going to be applied there for sure. But we are trying to work through this as quickly as we can, and council should be reassured that the contractor is playing ball with us. If that were to change, the other route, going more of a legal route, that usually takes longer.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, so 13.3, Corporate Services Committee Communications Specialist, Beth Adette. Oh, sorry. Sorry, we didn't vote on your report. Yeah, my mistake. We need to accept that wonderful report, Chief. Okay. Mine's there now. Yeah, did somebody else lose it? You okay? Okay, and that carries. Thank you. Now we'll have Corporate Services Committee Communications Specialist Beth Adette and Director of Legal and Legislative Services Jessica Dyson. Recommendation Report LLS-09 2026, and this is the final Communication and Engagement Master Plan. And Councillor Riley, you have that.
I do, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself, the recommendation report LLS 09 2026 titled Communication and Engagement Master Plan dated July 13th, 2026 be received, and that council approve the Communication and Engagement Master Plan as attached as Schedule A to this report.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please? Councillor Maychak? Okay. Are there any questions or comments about this report? Seeing, Councillor Chichot.
I did have one when I was reading through this report earlier on. I just wondered, through you, Madam Mayor, what the normal review of something as tactile as the communication report, how often would it be looked at? Every 3 years, 5 years? I read about a bunch of reports that haven't been looked at since 2013, so I want to keep with the times.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Ganan, to Councillor Chichak. We typically will, moving forward, be looking at these type of master plans for this one specifically I should speak to. I shouldn't speak through everything, but would be 5 years. Yeah, best practice. Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
So further to that, that means once we catch up on all of the old reports, that will be the norm that we're aiming for?
Yeah, that is something that we are, especially with our policies and procedures. If it's a new policy, we'll look at it probably within the first 2 years, and then moving forward would be more of a 5-year process, just to make sure that we're keeping up with all the appropriate legislation and proper operational efficiencies for the township.
Thank you, because legislation is changing regularly and procedures are changing and times are changing, so that's good to know. Thank you very much. Anything further from anybody else? Okay, the vote should be in front of you then. And that also carries. Item 2 under Corporate Services is Manager of Legislative Services / Clerk Justin Palov and Director of Legal and Legislative Services Jessica Dyson. Information Report LLS-10-2026 Governance Framework Review, Committee Structure and Procedural Bylaw. So Councillor Broderick, you have that, please.
Yes, moved by myself. One, that the information report LLS-10-2026 titled Governance Framework Review, Committee Structure and Procedural Bylaw dated July 13th, 2026 be received.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please? Councillor Chichot. All right. So, Director, I'm going to go to you first for some preliminary remarks, please.
Wonderful, thank you. Speaking of reviewing our processes, this comes at a good time. So before I pass things over to our legal counsel to provide an overview of the comparative governance study that you see in your agenda, I just wanted to touch on what administration is hoping to achieve through this report this evening. So tonight's report is really the starting point of a broader governance review. There's no recommendations before council this evening, and we're not asking council to make any decisions on a preferred governance model. Instead, we're looking to gather your feedback and perspectives to help guide the next phase of this work. So the review focuses on 2 related but separate initiatives. The first review is our committee structure, looking at whether our current standing committee models continue to be the most effective approach, or whether there are opportunities to improve efficiency while maintaining strong governance. And then the second piece is related to the comprehensive review of our procedural bylaw, which has not undergone a full review since it was adopted in 2013. So council's feedback is essential to this part of the process. While administration can identify operational opportunities and best practices, it is ultimately council's governance framework. So your experiences, perspectives, and priorities will help shape any future recommendations that will come to council. As part of this process, we'll also be seeking input from each member of council through a survey of the procedural bylaw. Your feedback this evening, together with those survey results, will help administration develop future recommendations and bring forward a modernized governance framework that reflects council's priorities and supports effective decision-making for years to come. So with that, I'll pass over the mic to Jacob, who is attending virtually. Between Jacob, Justin, and myself, we'll be able to answer any questions as we move forward with this.
Thank you. So welcome, Jacob. Can you hear us?
I can, yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can. We can.
Okay,
thank you.
Excellent. Okay, and does everyone have the slide package in front of them, or would it be easiest if I try to work some technical magic and share screen?
So we do have it.
Okay. Okay, I think that's probably the easiest, just because I tried to test it and my screens got all shifted.
It's not working. Do we have it, Kevin? No. Okay, we don't have it. Okay.
Okay, then I will share screens. Give me one moment.
Although we can follow along, Jacob, we have some people in the audience, and we also have
Yes.
people at home watching, and
Okay.
people who will watch this meeting afterwards, so we would like them to be able to see.
Absolutely. Okay. Almost there.
Okay, it seems to
Okay.
be, yeah. It's there. Thank you, Jacob. It's working.
Excellent. Thank you. So I just needed to switch things around on my screen so that I could see you still. So yes, this is a legal review of the council and committee structure as part of a broader governance review that we were asked to conduct starting earlier this year. As the director said, the purpose of the presentation tonight is to walk you through the work that we've done in evaluating the township's current decision-making framework, specifically council and standing committee structures, how meetings are run, and where there might be opportunities to enhance efficiency, clarity, or overall governance effectiveness. There's no decision required at this time. The intent here is to present where we're at with the governance review and solicit feedback from you in terms of what's been working in your perspective, what's not, and what other options council might want to explore. The other thing to emphasize at the beginning is that this isn't a compliance exercise. There's no risk from legal perspective that the township is offside any legislative requirement or that this is immediately necessary. This is just part of a best practice to take a step back and ask whether the township's procedural and governance structures continue to serve yourself as elected officials, as well as staff and residents, as well as they might be able to do. So what I'm going to do is walk us through the slide deck very briefly. I'm not going to spend time telling you how things currently operate. You're all familiar with that over the last 4 years, other than just to reiterate what you know, which is there's a monthly council meeting, 4 standing committees. This results in 5 meetings, typically on 3 days per month, and that there's an overlapping membership that involves mayor and all councilors on each of these. In addition to that, council selects the chairs of the committees, and committee chairs have something of a mixed procedural and substantive role, including meeting responsibilities, receiving resident complaints, and following up on committee direction. And I'm going to come back to that mixed role in a moment. What we identified in our review are some areas for improvement or 4 main areas of potential concern. And of course, as Jessica noted, what we want to hear from you is how much of a concern these areas are, or if there are other areas of concern that might need to be addressed in the review. So the first is the time burden on mayor and members of council with the current meeting structure, having those 5 different meetings, typically over 3 days. It's a significant time burden for those meetings, in addition to the prep that's associated with them. The second is a lack of meaningful opportunity for subject matter specialization. Because all members of council sit on all committees, there isn't an opportunity for a different composition of the committees or the discussions in that structure to bring different expertise and have conversations that take a different form in each of those meetings. The third potential area for concern is that mixed role of committee chairs, which creates potential for ambiguity regarding the scope and boundaries of that chair role. which might benefit from some further clarification in a procedural bylaw amendment. And finally, we identified a concern specifically with respect to administration, and the administrative burden on staff with those 5 separate meetings is substantial. It requires 5 separate agendas, 5 sets of minutes, logistical coordination that accompanies each meeting cycle. So in short, and again, there is a much more detailed memo covering this review, but I wanted to give council an overview of that for information and discussion purposes. In short, we assess that the current structure adds procedural complexity and workload without delivering some of the benefits of specialized committee system that system is designed to produce and encourage. The other area that we flagged in our review that requires update is with respect to strong mayor powers. This is an important legislative development that, of course, you're all tracking. Section 284.8 of the Municipal Act grants mayors who have been designated with strong mayor powers the authority to establish and dissolve committees, appoint chairs and vice chairs, and assign functions to committees. These powers were extended to the Township on the 1st of May, 2025. The procedural bylaw has not yet been updated to reflect this change. It still provides that council shall appoint committees and that the chair and vice chair are to be designated by council. And this language is now in conflict with that governing legislation. So that administrative update should be done regardless of the overall results of the governance review. I should also note that the mayor does have the option under the strong mayor powers provisions to delegate these powers back to council under section 284.13 of the Act. About 2/3 of mayors, this is according to a 2024 report from AMCTO, 2/3 of mayors that have received strong mayor powers have elected not to delegate these particular committee-related authorities back to council. Regardless of how the mayor wishes to proceed on that question, the bylaw should be harmonized with the legislation. So that's sort of setting the stage of where things are at currently. What we did in our assessment to inform our recommendations was conduct a comparative study of similarly sized municipalities within the Niagara region. Specifically, we examined the governance structures of Pelham, Fort Erie, Fort Colborne, Grimsby, and Lincoln. And we selected these municipalities because they share broadly comparable population sizes, council sizes, administrative context with West Lincoln, making them useful points of reference. And they also provide a few different options. They're not unanimous in how they do things. So what we saw in that comparative review were 2 broadly categorized different governance models. One is what we call a standing committee model, the other is a council-centric model. So the standing committee model, West Lincoln is following a version of that model. Grimsby and Lincoln also use a version of this approach, with policy specialized committees meeting separate from council. I would note that Grimsby does appear to do things quite differently from West Lincoln. Grimsby has an 8-member council plus the mayor, and most of its 5 standing committees are composed of up to 4 councillors and up to 3 community members. So not every councillor sits on every committee, and there are other voices or views that populate the rest of those committees. The second model is what we term a council-centric model. Pelham, Fort Erie, Fort Colborne all use this approach. And they have 2 council meetings per month, no standing committees, and each meeting agenda for those 2 council meetings addresses the full range of municipal business. And chairing of both of those meetings is typically performed by the mayor. As the administrative burden on staff. Standing committees, on the other hand, can enable greater policy specialization, but only if the membership of those committees differs across them. which is the Grimsby approach, where there's a slightly different composition on each committee. The members of council are different. The community members who are appointed to those committees are different. Longer meetings, but that would be one of the trade-offs that would have to be considered. From a public engagement standpoint, a simpler structure is often also easier to understand for residents and for newer councillors. The chairing structure is simplified, with the mayor assuming the responsibility for running those as a whole if a topic warrants deeper and less formal discussion. The second question relates to obligations under the Planning Act. The statutory public meetings that are required for planning matters, those can still be accommodated in this structure. Council could choose to either schedule a third meeting dedicated to Planning Act meetings, which is what Pelham does, or you could fold Planning Act meetings into regular bi-monthly council meetings, which is what Port Colborne does. We recommend the Port Colborne approach on this, and in this scenario, staff could designate up to 6 council meetings per year that would double as those public meetings under the Planning Act on a regularized schedule, which would allow for those statutory obligations to be met while not having a third meeting into that council calendar, that authority to council. And this would be a very simple change that could bring the bylaw into alignment without prejudging how the mayor might choose to exercise or delegate these powers in this council or the council formed following the upcoming election. And then the other to think about is the committee chair role. The items in the procedural bylaw that deal with chair responsibilities to remove that ambiguity without taking away from the chair's role and their ability to perform their core function of managing those committee proceedings effectively. So briefly, in closing, I won't repeat anything that I've covered, but let me draw the threads together. West Lincoln currently experiences what we see as the burden of a complex standing committee system without the benefit of the councillor or committee member specialization. A council-centric model could facilitate a leaner, more flexible governance model that fits with council size and capacity. This is the opening of a discussion, providing some options for further investigation or clarification. The question for you now is not which model to choose.
And so the thing we keep hearing is about how we can improve affordability, and so it's something as simple as cutting back staff's time so they could focus on the important matters and allow the politicking that we have to deal with every couple meetings there. If that can improve in some capacity and reduce or provide some kind of savings of staff time, I mean, it's we got to look at turn over every stone there and look at every option there. So I feel like, as we look at going into the future here and what we're going to be able to provide to our community, we need to be looking for all the efficiencies, and I really think option 1 really sets us right. I guess the only, I don't know if it's appropriate to say disappointment or concern, but I realize everyone kind of gets a little uneasy when we're getting close to the election. I wish we could kind of make a decision tonight or at least before the election to set up the next term of council, whatever that may be, on the right foot here, but I get there's always some hesitation about doing something this late in the term here. So hopefully, maybe I feel that differently there, and hope my colleagues maybe support my view on this, but I really like to see us kind of be proactive here and really hit the ground running to have ourselves set up for success in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further? Councillor Maychap?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm just trying to understand, ideally, if everything was in place and then this was brought forward to the new council and they could approve it, then it'd be in place as we begin the next term. Is that kind of the understanding, or seems to make sense? I'm just thinking we wouldn't want to do it too far into the new term and have major changes and have things.
it all depends on how quick we can get the survey completed and out and all your feedback, but it's definitely something that we've been working towards already. So we really would love to have it presented prior to the next term. It's just council's decision on how they want to see that unfolding.
Okay, Jacob, did you want to weigh in on that at all, or is that sufficient?
I would only add, I think that the point behind Councillor Maychak's question, through your worship, is well taken, and I think that it makes sense to have this in place, whatever is the direction going forward, at either at the beginning of or immediately at the start of the new term of council, rather than getting into a few cycles of the existing meeting structure and then changing it. There's nothing that says you can't, but certainly there are efficiencies and there are lots of benefits to having the system that will carry through for the next term of council in place, either before or right at the very beginning. Makes very good sense, for sure.
Thank you. Councillor Chichot. Oh, sorry, Councillor Maychak, were you finished? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Chichot.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm not here to dispute that it needs to be there before or after we start the next term of council, or whoever starts the new term of council. And I'm not here to decide which one we should be looking at, because I understand that staff have a process in place that's going to ask each and every one of the councillors and other people what it is that they feel and what their pros and cons are, which I think is worth listening to one more time before we understand the theoretical things that have been brought to us tonight. So I'm happy to have heard what it is that we've heard from our staff and our lawyer, but I really think we should just proceed as the report suggests, that we put it forward to get staff to undertake it. And there is time after the election to get to something before December 31st, even though the inaugural is not until usually December. But there is time to have a discussion, and if it wants to be done, or if it can't be done until the second meeting, I don't think we'll die on a cross. So I look forward to whatever is brought forward by Ms. Dyson and her staff.
Okay, so thank you for that. I think that that staff are probably already in the back of their minds have some thoughts about what they want to send out to all of us. And so, again, this is really to get all of us thinking about what we like and what we don't like. It is an opportunity to change things if we wish to change them, or decide to keep them the same if that's what the decision is. But I think it's been pointed out that certainly some of the wording in our procedural bylaw, and I will say that, since I arrived in 2016, I found conflicts in our procedural bylaw and have been asking about that. So I'm quite pleased that we're at least examining that at this point in time, because there are some areas that are very ambiguous. So, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Regional Councillor Albert Witteveen would remember, when him and I were in the 2003 to 2006 part, we had a week of planning, and the following week we had council to endorse it. The following week we had admin, fire and public works, and the following week we had council to endorse it. So we had 4 meetings a month, 2 of them were council. So that's how far we've changed from back then to now. It took a while to get used to the one council, but it did make more sense that one council should cover everything. But the old way was, you do one section and you finish it and you put it to bed. You do the next section, you finish it, and you don't carry one into the other. So that was the old school.
Well, it sounds like maybe this is a hybrid model of the old and the new, and maybe we'll have
now
something
they're coming
even
to
better.
change it again, but if I may ask.
But it has been 20 years, so it is time for a change. But go ahead.
I just wondered what precipitated this, because, we made some changes just recently. When the new CAO came on board, we were people of very simplistic agricultural roots, and planning was called planning. We didn't have to put a fancy name that mind-boggled everybody else about what in the heck are you talking about, like doctored language or something. So we've changed everything and put fancy titles on them. So we've already done that, and now we want to change this. I just wonder, are we doing this because we have time to be creative, or who brought this up? Why is this brought up at this point? And I agree with other members. This is almost, to me, a decision that should be made with the new council that comes in, because we're the ones that are leaving, and why should we tell the ones that are coming in what they should do? In reality, they're going to be there set for 4 years, and they should set their own path and what they're comfortable with.
Well, I think our CAO would like to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, with respect to the procedural bylaw, this was a work package that had been on the docket for some time. I understand that the procedural bylaw itself hasn't been reviewed in at least a couple of terms. Typically, each council would want to have a review of the procedural bylaw. It is the vehicle in which council conducts its business through, rather. And since that hasn't happened, and the mayor herself has noted a number of discrepancies and contradictions within the procedural bylaw, and that's all well and fine until council runs into an issue within a debate. And if the procedural bylaw itself isn't clear, that creates challenges in council deciding, and especially the chair, on deciding how to rule on any given matter as it comes up if there's conflicts within the bylaw. We've had some confusion on the role of committee chairs with respect to do they give direction to administration or not. That is something that certainly needs to be looked at. So in my time here, this is something that had been flagged. We need to take a look at the procedural bylaw. Before we get to the procedural bylaw, it's often helpful to go through a governance review and how are we actually making decisions as a council. So this is a means to provide that conversation, get the input from council, what's working, what isn't. If there's a means to save council some time in their lives, this is a part-time role, then we want to bring those options forward to council for consideration. If the current format is serving council well, fair enough. Administration will continue at the pleasure of council. We are in your hands there. This moment in the term happens to be somewhat useful, as many councils do like to consider it giving a gift of advice to a new council coming in. Perhaps the same council will be re-elected, but if not, new councils don't always have the same experience with meetings, and so oftentimes advice is welcome from the previous council. It's not seen as this is what thou shalt do, but this is our experience, and we're passing some recommendations to the next on how to carry out an efficient, effective, transparent governance structure.
Councilor Reyna?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. There's a couple concerns I have. Number one, we changed just a little while ago. Well, I shouldn't say we because I wasn't part of it. I had to go along with it. It was planning and public works put together. Now, in the past, and all the years that I've been doing this, which has been a long time, and I know people don't like to hear that, but that's life, planning can be very long, extremely long. Also, public works at times can be extremely long. Putting them together, I thought, was asking for trouble because administration, finance, and fire are usually very quick. So we've got one night where we're burning the midnight candle potentially at 2 in the morning, and the next one we're getting out of here at 8 o'clock at night. I didn't think that was a good move.
So, Councillor, I'm just going to stop you at this point because that's the very kind of input that you will be able to give when you have an opportunity to provide that.
Okay.
And each and every councillor will be able to have their input into that, exactly the kind of thing you're talking about. What we're talking about tonight, quite honestly, is just receiving this for information. This is the starting point. You will each have an individual opportunity to provide that feedback that you want. And then it will come back to us with some scenarios that we can choose from, I presume.
Okay, the only other comment I have to make is you can change this around all you want, but unless you eliminate one of those 5, which Jacob brought up, you are going to have to deal with those, whether you deal with them in one night or you spread the pain out over a couple nights. If by condensing this and trying to make it more efficient, you are going to potentially make those meetings potentially extremely long. And if those meetings happen to be ones where there's 4 public meetings followed by everything else and you're here till 2 in the morning, there is no way you can expect any person, regardless if it's a councilor or whatever, even airplane pilots are regulated by this, your ability to be attentive to the subject matter will wane hour after hour. You will not be as sharp 5 hours into it as you were the first hour you were here.
So again, I'm going to stop you because we know that.
Would not be in the best interest.
We know that, and that's why we have timelines on our meetings. However, I'm also going to say that...
But timelines, Madam Mayor, can be
Excuse
changed.
me.
You just passed, everybody goes past 11. What timelines do you got? You're not stopping it, you're just extending it.
we do have a timeline.
We've
Shall
never,
we?
we've never said no at 11, every time, in 19 years I've been here, we have never at 11 o'clock said, no, we're going to go home and finish this tomorrow.
Okay, so
It's
we're going
never
to stop
happened.
because this is the kind of thing that makes a meeting go on longer. But let me just say that the exception that we heard was that public meetings could all be on a separate evening. That is a possibility.
That would help.
And that would be, and that was part of what Mr. Damster presented to us, that we might have 6 designated meetings, so every other month, there would be a meeting that would be strictly for those public meetings. So.
Those are
so
just
it's-
things I thought people should be aware of, because
Well-
I'm all for making the change if it's more efficient, but you got to do it in a way that we don't get burned on the backside.
Well, you will have that opportunity to have your input. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
go to Councillor Trombetta, because he's been waiting patiently for his turn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, obviously, we're going to have some more conversation when this comes back to us at some point. I do think we have made some better changes. We have moved, confidential to the beginning, where confidential is not at the end anymore. I find that we have streamlined some, but I guess we're always up for new innovative ways of streamlining better service to the public. I think that's important for us. I do agree with some of the comments, like as we go on, we do kind of just, I don't want to say it, but we kind of just moving the agenda along, because as the night gets later, it does happen, and we do kind of just push it forward.
We are human
because-
beings, yes.
Well, we are, people that do, have a long day, and then you come and you're here till 11:30, 12 o'clock, you're pushing things forward and quickly, and sometimes that's always a disservice for the public, so if we can find better ways of, streamlining it better, that it's not a disservice, some topic that we, that we see that sometimes we just got to push to the end, and again, as it comes to the end, it kind of gets pushed along, but we don't mean to do it, it's just the way the time happens and how we do it. So again, I'm up for anything. I guess this has got to go back to staff because it's being received, right, Mr. Clerk?
It's just received for information.
Now, we have to, I know we're talking about deciding, and that, will the conversation come through, Madam Chair, I guess, to Mr. Dancer, will it have to be decided by the new council-elect, or is it up to us to decide? Like, I don't know.
So there's no up to us or no, our procedural bylaw, staff can just change. That needs to be done. The structure of our committees, that I think is what we really need input into, whether we want to look at trying to go with, 2 main meetings and then separate out our public meetings for planning so that that's a different night altogether. That we will have input to. Ideally, in my mind, if we could have those decisions made so that the first meeting of the new council, we know whether the mayor is appointing committees or whether the council is appointing committees, and we know who's going to have those committees if we're maintaining that same structure. So ideally, but that doesn't mean it has to be so. There's nothing that says in law, thou shalt do that by a certain date.
So
So we
then-
have some options to see what staff come back
But
with.
then there'll be added chair roles, will there not? Like double chair roles? Because if you have a public meeting, the same chair would run that meeting as well as the planning meeting, correct? Right?
That's where we need to have input into staff when the questions come from our staff,
Yeah.
right? So that staff have the opportunity. So when that comes to us, I would just like to suggest that you put your feed input back in as quickly as possible so that staff have more time to deal with that before it has to come back to us. Anyway, is that okay?
Yeah, if there's double chair roles, Madam Mayor, you've been trying to
We're-
push me to get on planning for many years
We're
now, so
not
there you go.
even sure about how that will work out, so we'll see.
No, she's been trying to get me to go on
I-
planning for a long time, so.
Councillor Bradrick, I have you on my list.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one comment and one question.
Okay, Councillor Bradrick has the floor.
The comment is, I like the opportunity for the flexibility in the agendas, so that when there is maybe more of a pressing item, that staff don't have to necessarily wait till it comes up for the right committee. So I think that is something that really is appealing to me as a councillor, and I'm sure to the staff as well. My question is through you, Madam Mayor, and perhaps to the presenter or staff, whoever that could best answer this. And I feel very confident in asking this question because this council that sits around this table takes very little time off. But it's always been my understanding that if you miss 3 council meetings, that you would be removed from your seat. And with this being 2 council meetings and a third one could be within 6 weeks, I just wonder about, a councilor that maybe is unwell or there's some kind of, situation that would prevent them from missing, where versus being 3 months, it turns now into half that time.
And that's an excellent question, because under the Municipal Act, that is the ruling. So the difference then, as I see it top of head, without giving it any thought, if one of those meetings was similar to this, an all committee and council, and the next one was designated differently, then we could get around that. I don't know. That was certainly a good thing for staff to look into. And I'm not sure whether Mr. Downstra has an answer to that at this point or not.
Very briefly, and I'm happy to look at this further, Your Worship, and through you. My understanding of the provision in the Municipal Act is that if you're absent from meetings of council for 3 successive months, so whether you have 3 meetings in 3 months or 6 meetings in 3 months, it's the 3-month period that's important. I'm just sort of going off memory of the provision, but I think that that's what it is. We can certainly confirm that, and staff could confirm that to members of council when the survey goes around for feedback, because it's a fair concern, and you want to make sure that you understand that when you're considering which route to go forward.
So thank you for that advice, and I think that we will have staff for sure look into that. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maychak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate the presentation. I think you can always improve, and I think it's important to always look at governance, especially with the timing. This is more clarification from the CAO, being it was raised. And I've said this before, the restructuring, the hiring, I think you've done an outstanding job. And at the end of the day, I think it is all about programs and services. And the little time I've been here, I see things improving all the time and appreciate that. This is my only question. In terms of the titles, and we heard some of the comments, I would assume that the titles given to the new staff was to better reflect their job description so that the community would better understand their role, what they do, and what they perform on a daily basis. Just want to clarify that.
So the CAO is nodding his head. Did you want to actually speak to that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, that was the intent, is to align specifically. One of the title changes with Mr. Borma's portfolio was to try to establish the balance and reflect back when we have a development portfolio, that we're trying to strike a balance between sustainability of the agricultural lands and the growth of the urban area. So it's to try to reflect the dual priorities of the community as administration understands it with this council.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor? No? Councillor Riley, second time?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I wanted to mention a couple of things. One, that was my understanding of the Municipal Act, was basically 3 council meetings over the period of 90 days. I do believe, and this is something staff can confirm back, or we can all look in our own time, that there is an exemption if a member of council has a circumstance comes up, they can petition the council before that 3rd meeting
they
for a
ask.
leave of absence for medical reasons or personal reasons. Again, I just want to make sure, when I mentioned, I kept things maybe a little bit general, but when we talk about flexibility, I know Councillor Rayner and I both have had situations where we wanted to bring matters to a particular committee meeting, but it wasn't the appropriate meeting, so there's these weird hurdles you have to go through if it's so urgent that you have to bring it in. Well, this would allow that flexibility, and I think that's something that, when I talk about benefiting the community, this, when we have people like, oh, you can't come to next month because you missed the window, and you can actually bring that presentation forward. Again, this is a better service for the community. As far as the concern for long meetings, I think this term we've had 1, maybe 2 at most that have gone past that 11-hour mark. We've had a pretty efficient term. We've started a little bit earlier on a couple of days that we thought were going to be a little longer than normal, but the planning, in my understanding from the presentation, is that the planning could have its own meeting, even if it's the same day or a different day. So again, I think this is, option 1 is a slam dunk, and I think it's the best all around, but that's my view, and that's the input I'll provide when staff reaches out. And I certainly hope that we can do this in a timely manner, that staff can report back to committee before the end of this term. So I don't so much expect this to kind of take place this term, but I just really like to set up whoever that next term is in the right direction. So I just want to make sure that was very clear.
Thank you. Anything further from anyone before we go on? Okay. So once again, just a reminder that we have this duly moved and seconded, and it is to be received only. So Mr. Clerk will call on that vote, please. And while people are voting, I'll thank you, Mr. Damstra, for your time and your presentation this evening. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, members of council, for your help, comments, and feedback.
Councillor Chicho.
Mike's screen went black. Hang on. Oh.
Okay, got everybody now? All right, and that also carries. So thank you for that discussion and for that time. We still have another point under corporate services. So this time we're going to Director of Corporate Services and CFO John Henry. Recommendation report T-07-2026, and it's the 2025 Asset Management Plan. Councillor Maychak, you have that resolution.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that recommendation report T-07-2026, titled 2025 Asset Management Plan, referred as AMP, dated July 13th, 2026, be received, and that council approve the Township 2025 Asset Management Plan, recognizing there are no immediate financial impacts to approve, and that administration be directed to submit the Township's 2025 Asset Management Plan to the Ministry of Infrastructure and make the report publicly available on the Township's website. And lastly, that the financial strategy of the asset management plan and associated recommendations be referred to future budgets and the capital planning processes.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please? Councillor Riley. Okay, I'm going to ask our Director of Corporate Services / CFO, Mr. Henry, to go ahead, please, with
Thank
some
you.
preliminary remarks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So before council, obviously, is this report, 2025 Asset Management Plan. Sometimes we refer to it as AMP or AMP, so you may hear those terms used. The overall goal of the plan is really to ensure that infrastructure is in adequate condition or state to support the community services and programs. And that's what this is all about. So the Township has been performing this activity for some time. However, the provincial regulation has been formalized over the past number of years. And so they've standardized it, which means we have to come forward with very specific aspects of it, and they've phased in this practice. So submitted before you this report, this plan actually satisfies those regulations that are in place for the third and final phase of the requirements, and it'll include topics such as asset condition, risk, levels of service, and there's a financial strategy there as well. So that's a little bit heavy, and we'll get to that in a bit. So this was a pretty significant undertaking to pull this all together, and so we secured Public Sector Digest and retained them to assist us in the preparations to meet these regulations. Marissa Benuelos Spencer, I hope I got that right. I can't see her, but anyway, she's going to be presenting virtually. She'll be providing us with that presentation, and administration is also here to help through any discussions we may have. So before we get started, I just want to mention a few key takeaways, which I think are important to recognize. So the first one is that this submission is time sensitive, and I think that's an important note. So today, Council's primary goal is to adopt the AMP so we can meet those legislative requirements, and this is really important as the province has linked this to compliance for grant funding. So if we don't have this move forward or the adoption through Council, things like gas tax or OSIF grant funding may become a challenge in the future. So it's very important that we get this taken care of and it secures that source. Overall, the impacts associated with this report, they're pretty significant. But I should say that this message is consistent Ontario-wide. So this is not a specific, West Lincoln issue. This isn't that West Lincoln standing alone. This is something that the province has been grappling with for probably decades. And I think, provincial municipalities have been grappling with, and the province is kind of starting to structure this to get the information in a consistent framework, I think. So recognizing, or administration recognizes that there's some affordability issues here, and some constraints, and to mitigate the pressure, we've embedded within the strategy concepts like phasing in that increase that might be required, and maybe even reducing or tempering some funding requirements to allow for maybe continuous improvement. So how we're looking at that as far as this, the service levels or what type of infrastructure needs to be replaced or how we're going to be funding it going forward. And then the other thing to make note of is that there is a requirement to update the AMP annually. So if there's certain questions or something happens to be maybe not as accurate as it needs to be, there's ample opportunity to update it on a go-forward basis. So there's no, oh, this is just it. It's just a one-time crack at this. It's an ongoing living document. And then the last point is that the best practice is to refer the AMP to inform the budget and financial planning process. So, therefore, there are no financial decisions tonight that are required, so the pressure is off council in that regard. But we do request that it be referred to future budget decisions or deliberations so that we can capture this pressure, and then that discussion will happen at that particular point in time. So with that said, hopefully I've given Marissa enough time to get ready for her presentation. I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can't see her, but hopefully she can see and hear us.
Okay, well, thank you, John. Through you, Madam Mayor, from my end, my camera is on, and I can see myself.
Okay, and we can hear you, and we can see the plan in front of us, Marissa.
Okay. Did you want me to proceed, or do you want to have a little pause?
No,
just
you
for
go
IT?
ahead when you're ready. If you're ready, we
Okay.
are ready to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. As John mentioned, my name is Marisa Benuela Spencer, and I'm here presenting the 2025 Asset Management Plan for the Township of West Lincoln. To support this presentation will focus on 5 key items. We'll start off with a brief overview of the regulation, touching on some of the points that John mentioned as well. From there, we'll go into a brief overview of the project, highlighting the key objectives and the key stages, and then we will jump into key details from the plan. From there, we will discuss the proposed level of service options and the option that was selected, and we'll conclude with next steps and recommendations. Starting off with the regulatory background, as John noted, all municipalities within the province of Ontario are required to abide by Ontario Regulation 58817, also known as Asset Management Planning for municipalities. This legislation was implemented beginning in 2019 with asset management policies and had some subsequent requirements between 2022 and 2025, each with increasing complexity and scope. Ultimately, behind each of these deadlines and associated requirements, the intent is really for municipalities to better understand their asset portfolios, the associated investment requirements, and the life cycle strategies, so that in doing so, it can support sustainable and longer-term management of municipal assets. This project focused on the 2025 requirements of the regulation, and as John noted, the outcoming deliverable, the asset management plan presented as well today, meets those requirements. Briefly going into a bit of a project overview, this project, the key objective was to develop a compliant asset management plan and to define proposed levels of service, to develop a supporting financial strategy, and long-term asset management approaches. To do that, it was a significant undertaking involving several key staff across your organization, and several important milestones were achieved within the project. This includes data review and updates, where we looked at over 25,000 individual asset records, verified information against them in a minimum of 5 attribute data points for every single asset record. This also includes proposed levels of service, where we evaluated different options, sought to understand their relative cost, risk, and investment requirements, and worked to select one. It also included a financial strategy, where we sought to understand the township's current financial investment to your assets, the investment requirement based on the selected proposed level of service, and a strategy to bridge those two. Fourthly, it meets the regulatory compliance of OREG, which is significant in its scope and complexity. So some key details from the plan, which is in front of you today. As noted, this plan is based on really detailed information on the township's assets. It is certainly an extensive database that the township has, and this information was pulled from that database. When we look at the township's assets, we see that the total replacement cost of the portfolio is nearly $500 million. Most of that is associated with your roads, followed by your bridges. However, other asset categories, such as your water network and facilities, contain a large component of the total portfolio replacement cost. These costs are as of 2025, and so they are relatively recent. Another important thing that we look at when seeking to understand the current state of the township's asset is the condition of them. So this graph here on the right-hand side is showing the condition breakdown of the portfolio. We see in green that a large proportion, about a quarter of the township's assets as of 2025 were in very good condition, and about a third of the township's assets were in good, and about slightly less than a third were in fair. So currently, most of the township's assets are indicating at least a fair condition. However, it's important to note the condition, just like the condition of your home or car, is dynamic, and it will change over time as assets age. Another important thing that we looked at is understanding under optimal conditions, what are the funding requirements. This graph here is showing the capital investment requirements in 5-year buckets, with the red dotted line showing the average capital investment requirement. We can see that there is some fluctuations from one time period to another, but on an average annual basis, the optimal investment is about $15 million. When we compare that to the current sustainable capital funding requirements, so this would exclude any one-time funding grants, we're at about a $3 million investment. Another important part of the project, and a really key part of the 2025 requirement, was to understand proposed level of service options and ultimately to select one. A proposed level of service reflects the forecasted asset performance by a defined future date. It should consider important factors like the cost of delivery, the risk of delivery, and the feasibility. A simple example might be the condition of the assets as of 10 years from now. We evaluated 3 scenarios after extensive engagement with staff as well as public consultation through a survey. The first scenario that we evaluated was to maintain existing capital spending levels. Here, the intention was to understand what the long-term ramifications of the current investment are projected to be, and to understand if that was at all viable. The second scenario was to achieve 100% of the requirements. What this means is that we are funding the replacement of every single asset once it reaches the end of its estimated useful life, and for larger assets, like your bridges, for example, completing recommended rehabilitations. In this scenario, we increased the funding in a phased approach where we increased it gradually each year for 20 years until we hit that 100% of your requirements. Scenario 3 is a bit of a middle ground option. Here, we funded 75% of your requirements, and we also phased this in over 20 years. When we evaluated the outputs of these options, the key findings that we found is that for scenario 1, which is your current funding, the projected changes in condition are the poorest, meaning the condition of your assets are projected to decline most severely of the 3 scenarios. The risk, when we talk about risk, we're seeking to understand the probability of an asset failing alongside the consequence of it, was also the highest, or had the poorest outcomes of the 3 options. This option was the most affordable of the 3, and in simple terms, the most achievable. However, it would carry very significant operational risk simply because you would have more and more assets each year in existence beyond the estimated useful life, and therefore more and more likely to fail, and harder to respond to. In contrast, scenario 2, where we fund 100% of the requirements, had the best relative outcomes in condition. It had the best relative outcomes in risk, and it was the most expensive. From an achievability standpoint, using a phase-in approach, there is achievability because we're not increasing it dramatically overnight. Rather, we're increasing it, gradually year over year. The third option, where we fund 75% of requirements, showed outcomes between 1 and 2, however, generally closer to 2. Therefore, it had kind of mid-level performance in terms of condition, similarly mid-level performance in terms of risk, as well as cost. This scenario was also considered reasonably achievable to implement, again considering the phase-in approach. This graph here is an example of each of the 3 scenarios that I just discussed. In this graph, what you're seeing is the condition of the road network and how condition is projected to change over time based on scenario. The green dotted line indicated for scenario 1 is the current funding. This is indicating how condition is projected to change in the long term based on current funding. The purple dotted line is scenario 3, which is your 75% of requirements. And again, that's indicating the same elements, how condition is projected to change over time based on the modeled scenario. The third scenario is the blue dotted line that reflects scenario 2, which is your optimal funding. We see here that has the best outputs in condition. Again, if we compare this relative to each other, we see that current funding option, scenario 1, presents the poorest outcomes. Scenario 3, which is your 75% requirements, present mid-level options, however, they are closer to the 100% requirement option. What we found is that this dynamic is quite consistent between different categories of assets, whether it be the roads or something else like your machinery and equipment, for example. Based on those outputs, staff elected to select scenario 3, which is achieving 75% of your requirements with a phased-in approach over 20 years. Some key considerations that staff held in selecting this option as opposed to the others was that it still provides quite significant improvements from your current funding levels, which in the long term project improvements in condition and reductions in risk relative to the current funding model. Additionally, staff felt that the additional risk and liabilities potentially associated with scenario 3, 75% of your requirements, in comparison to scenario 2, 100% of your requirements, have opportunity for mitigation. Mitigations may include things like improved and updated condition assessment information. This allows us to have a better understanding of the condition of your assets. It allows for more targeted investment to those critical assets that reduces things like risk of failure. Other options or strategies for mitigation could include rehabilitation strategies. These are generally more cost-effective when compared to replacement, and they allow for betterments in condition. Additional things would be ongoing report integration. Again, as John mentioned, asset management is kind of a living document. So as you do things like your roads need study or your bridge inspection, continuing to ensure that the township updates those studies into the asset management database to ensure that decisions are predicated on the best information available, as well as financial strategies, things like long-term capital funding to ensure that you have the investment that you need, that you have sufficient reserves, and where possible that you can leverage grant funding to hopefully kind of amp up the condition of your portfolio. Based on that selected option, the projected financial ramifications are as noted on your screen. So this would require that tax-funded assets are increased by 2.3% each year for 20 years. Your rate-funded assets are 3.2% for your water network. This was recommended over a 10-year period. And then for your wastewater network, 1.1% each year for 10 years. These annual increases in total tax revenue or total rate revenue do not include inflationary adjustments, so those would be in addition. Next steps and recommendations, as noted within the plan, there's kind of two categories that we can look at. So the first category is more program-specific recommendations. That includes, as John mentioned in his kind of opening remarks, ensuring that when you get to the capital budgets that you integrate this information into those changes. Another important recommendation, as you are already doing, to continually review, refine, and calibrate your asset data to improve its accuracy, utility, and relevance. There's more specific details within that plan as to kind of specific things that you could do to continue that improvement. Additionally, there are more compliance-based recommendations. That includes that we recommend that Council, as per Section 8 of Ontario Regulation, approve by resolution the Township's 2025 Asset Management Plan, as well as you authorize staff to post that plan on the municipality's website. With that, that concludes the presentation for tonight. I do want to take a moment to thank the Township for allowing PSD Citywide to assist you in this journey. And as well, I'd like to take a moment to thank John and to thank the staff at the Township who worked with us on this project. It certainly is, a team effort, and they have been gracious and wonderful to work with. So I do want to thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to turn to members of council to see if they have any questions or comments regarding this. So we'll start. Councillor Mecha.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is probably the most obvious question, but I would assume that the priorities each year are generally those items that are near their life cycle in terms of what's done or what the priority may be. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's pretty precise. So, like you would imagine with your own home or maybe your vehicle, you're generally going to replace things, when they need to be replaced. So usually that would be predicated on condition.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Chichok?
I guess it's just the love of numbers or analyzing the future that makes this report so meaningful. Thank you very much for it. And for Mr. Henry, for this being your inaugural report to us. Thank you so much for bringing us this good news.
I know.
I just looked and said it was 46% for a tax increase before inflation and anything else we want to do. Hot dog, we were able to kill it last year. Anyway, I make no light of it. I think about 8 years ago, we knew that our water system was in great disarray and that we put in a fairly substantial aggressive increase to those facilities, only those owned by the town. And if I remember correctly, we had a public meeting where I don't know why I was there, but certainly council. I was one of the brave ones, but we had quite a full house talking about why it was going to take 5% in some years and 5% repetitively just to keep pipes and water flowing through them. And here we are 10 years later. And it just says that the infrastructure has increased in value that much more, replacing it has cost that much more, and our service level standards are imposed on us by the province and or expectations from the community. And here's the kind of answers we have to go to. So I understand completely what you're saying. The issue, of course, becomes one of the province imposing again on us the fact that grants will not be gotten and gas tax will not be received if we don't do this. And I understand 10 years ago when the first asset management was starting, it was a grievous state for some municipalities who had run their infrastructure into the ground and were going to the province for repeatedly getting grants or various other things to reduce the cost to the municipality for their own neglect. And I don't think West Lincoln has been there. We've tried very valiantly, the staff and council, to keep track of it. I saw the roads, and I know we have a lot of roads, but I think the one that has a very pointed impact, and I started looking at some of those peaks and valleys, and through you, Madam Mayor, I guess the question was, what's the one that's most impacted? Would it be fire? Because there's need, and there's expensive trucks, because that guy with the badges on likes to buy $10 million trucks, for all the right reasons, but is there... I know that all this money is going to go into a pool, and it's going to be averaged over all our assets, and today somebody gets what they want, and hopefully we'll have enough in that pot to keep going forward and without having to look at cost. If we do this right, we won't be able to see anybody without the funds to maintain the system, whatever it is, whether it's trucks, pipes, or whatever. But it would be interesting to see, because I noticed that some of these things go from a satisfactory level of funding down into a dip where it's very unsatisfactory and come back, which says either we're expecting growth or we're expecting to get new infrastructure in, which isn't going to cost us anything, or something of that nature. So I'm not asking you to do more work. I just want to understand better as we go to budget what kind of implications there could be, and not tonight, but at some point. Because this asset management thing's been going on since 2019, as your consultant said. Now here we are with some results. By the way, could we call it something else beside AMPS? I know that that's the bylaw is also AMPS, so when you come forward and tell which AMPS are we talking, no, it's just a joke. But I commend you for the work that you've done. This is going to change in the future, and it says that we have a commitment, just as we did for water 10 years ago. We have a commitment now for all of our infrastructure that's going to be sitting us with a 2.3% tax increase before we look at anything else. So to get to 1.1 or 2% on an annualized basis is something the public is going to have to hear. So, and I think we're in pretty good shape, Madam Mayor, as compared to other municipalities. So this is not news. I mean, it might be a bit of a shock, but it shouldn't be. So thank you for the report. Thank you for the comprehensiveness of it, and I look forward to many other pieces of information to fill in our lovely little heads.
Thank you. Anything further from anyone else? Okay, so we do need, of course, to have this passed tonight, because we do need to get it to the government. Make note of the fact, those of you who are at Roma, that this is the 2025. Well, we were at Roma last time when we didn't have it ready, and it was the 2025. So I just personally want to thank John and Marisa for her involvement as well, and any other staff that are involved. They are now talking about other kinds of things, but we know how difficult it was when we went with a delegation to find out that we'd had an extension, but that it certainly wasn't there yet. So although it is not misnamed, being the 2025 plan, it was a designated time period where this really thorough material needed to be presented. So thank you. And Sri, I believe you were also involved, so thank you also for your work on that. We really do appreciate that it's done. And we'll go to the clerk to provide the vote. And that also carries. Thank you very much. So there are no reconsiderations this evening, and there are no notices of motion to rescind, which will take us to other business. And the first one I have actually, just to make, so that you are informed, there was a letter that came right after the last council meeting, in fact, June the 23rd, directed to dear head of council, and it came from Minister Flack. And it has to do with new regulations that were passed. And essentially, I have the letter. We didn't send the letter on because staff have actually looked into some of the ramifications of it. But essentially, there were changes to the strong mayor framework made through regulatory amendments to Ontario Regulation 530-/22 under the Municipal Act. So, and it has to do with the fact that we're in an election period, and it has to do with budget. And I'm going to read what it says. So it was intended to strengthen accountability for decision-making during a municipal election year by ensuring that certain rules which currently apply in non-strong mayor municipalities similarly apply to strong mayor municipalities. So they're sort of taking away that newly imposed scenario that we used about this current council being able to bring a budget forward quite early in the year and remove that so that all municipalities are looking at this next budget with the same eye. So specifically, heads of council and strong mayor municipalities are subject to the following rules, which came into force on June 22nd, 2026. So this is quite new. Election year budget rules. Outgoing heads of council are limited from proposing the municipal budget for the year immediately following a regular municipal election, aligning strong mayor municipalities with existing municipal budget rules. Now, there's a bit of a discrepancy there because it also goes on to say things about, protection really for staff. Heads of council are restricted from appointing or removing the chief administrative officer and other municipal division heads, changing the organizational structure of the municipality, or if not already authorized in the municipality's budget, exercising their bylaw power to dispose of property valued at over $50,000. So we know what happened when the strong mayor powers came in, when there was a lot of upheaval in some municipalities where suddenly the CAO was dismissed and they went looking for somebody new. I think this legislation is really designed to make sure that doesn't happen with an outgoing mayor as well. Somebody who doesn't intend to run again, or somebody who's unsure of what will happen in the next election, who decides that it's time to make those significant changes. So it goes on to say these restrictions would apply if it can be determined that either 3/4 of the outgoing members of council will not be members of the new council, or the outgoing head of council will not be the new head of council. So as head of council, this is the part that's a little bit ambiguous, and so I'll tell you how we've covered that. As head of council, you may wish to ensure that any relevant delegations you wish to establish are in place in advance of nomination day on August 21st, 2026. The regulation provides that delegable strong mayor powers that may later become restrictive can continue to be exercised where they were delegated. So things will not change, other than what I did do, was discuss with John and with the clerk, just to make sure we're covered, that staff does go ahead and start doing that preliminary work on the budget, or we're going to be kind of in the middle and in a mess. And so that will happen as usual. But we will not be doing in the same way the way the budget was presented last year. But we need to be ready for a budget to happen right away. So staff are going to do their job, and we are going to do our job whenever we see what happens with the election moving forward. But so there are all kinds of places you can look. If you want to look at the actual letter, you're welcome to look at it. Staff have checked out the actual legislation, and that still is not really, really clear about whether that means after the election that the new council then goes back into the normal form and can then right away in, say, December, start working on the new budget, or whether we have to wait till January and that's still being looked at this point in time. So time will tell. But that is essentially what that article is about, so that you're aware that, once again, there's a new directive from the province for what's going on with that.
What's next week?
What's next week? That's probably a really good question. So I'm now going to turn to the rest of you for your council remarks. So we'll start with you, Councillor Maychak. Anything on your side?
Just a real quick one. I'm involved with the Commonwealth Games. I wore this shirt because our national athletes will be competing at the end of the month in Glasgow, and I'm sure they're going to do extremely well. And if you get a chance, it's on the CBC, and they'll be showing all the highlights and some of the key events. So do cheer on Team Canada now that, or Team Canada, who did great at the soccer, isn't competing, but do take a chance. Some of the athletes are from this region, and I'm sure they'll do us proud.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bradrick.
I guess a couple of comments to do with the beginning of summer. I know we're already a few weeks in, children running, riding their bikes, just be mindful of that. And also, it looks like a very extreme heat day tomorrow, so check on your neighbors, make sure they're okay, keep cool, and try to enjoy the weather.
Thank you. Councillor Trombetta, anything today? Nothing today? Okay. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just backpack something you mentioned during your remarks. I was going to mention anyways tonight, but I did want to just thank staff for their quick and calm and efficient way of handling the Canada Day excitement there when that being on ground zero, I'll put it, but being there, and you were there yourself, Madam Mayor, but being there when it kind of all unraveled, I was really impressed to see how well staff performed in that moment. That's not something, if I didn't know any better, I swore they trained that 100 times, if not more, before, and I don't think there is any particular training in that particular situation that those particular staff members may have been prepared, and so just kind of being there and watching them in action, I was impressed. I thought it was worth noting. I think sometimes those things go unrecognized until you're there and you witness it, and they were able to get ahead of most of the storm there before the big part hit, and got most of the people evacuated and moved out there, and then everything kind of just unraveled after that, and they handled it so well that I just thought it was worth noting, because again, unless you're actually there and you see them do that stuff kind of goes unrealized, and we only ever hear sometimes about the negative stuff and not necessarily all the stuff that took place beforehand. So I think we're in a really good position for our community and our staff that handle themselves so well and professionally, and I just thought it was worth giving them one more shout out. Thank you.
Councillor Chicha.
I think most of everything has been said, Your Worship, but I do want to say that I was very impressed as well with the way that our Canada Day celebrations were conducted, and the first live from the scene reporting by our own personnel on the devastation and to stay home and stay safe. So actually it was very good to listen, watch, and see that. Many people remarked about it, and even though some participants did have damage to their equipment, everything was minimized and no one was hurt. So I don't think anybody should have a negative comment about our Canada Day. It was here different in West Lincoln than it was in Grimsby, than it was in Pelham, anywhere else around the province. And every one of the successional storms that have happened that we have seen and experienced, our garbage bin fell apart on all three of them. But I will say that you made calls or said Grimsby didn't experience the wind, the rain, or whatever. Neither did Waynfleet, neither did some other parts. So I think it would be unfair for people to suggest that while other people kept on going, our situation was grave and it was handled extremely well. On the ground, on the scene, by our own staff.
Thank you. Councillor Rayner, anything this evening?
Yes, just regard to that storm. It was wicked, but it was so unpredictable in the sense that it went through Caister, but it didn't last very long, and it didn't have the intensity at all that justified all the power failure and everything. Like, I was totally taken back when seen on the map how much was affected, but of course that's below the escarpment, which is a totally different atmosphere down there that people know that live above, especially in the wintertime. The intensity was just amazing, but I also appreciate NPEI was on top of it. They tried to get the information out. I got the mayor informed as soon as I was informed of the situation, and it was so serious that they actually brought in Hydro One trucks from London. So that's how big it got, and it was amazing how quick people got together, and actually the power went on sooner than I expected it was going to, but it still took a while.
Well, and it went on sporadically, I think, because in addition to the main problem, which finally was identified, you're correct, there were just limbs down all over that were still affecting. 5 o'clock in the morning, I heard from a lady who still didn't have power. So it was very sporadic going back on. But you're right, it was intense and it was unusual, but lots and lots of limbs down everywhere.
I guess what they say, it's a sign of the times now, because the storms we have are so much more intense than we're used to in the past, that what we accepted in the past as minimal damage is now becoming major damage.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. So I just have a couple of small things. One not so small. We don't do proclamations in West Lincoln, but we were approached by the Hepatitis Society about World Hepatitis Day, which is July 28th. So I just said that I would make an announcement about that. Historically, West Lincoln has not done proclamations for anything. So although they send it in the form of that, I want to point out that that it is celebrated on the 28th. And Montebello Park on Friday the 24th from 11 till 3. There is sort of ongoing education. So if you know of people who are dealing with that, or you're wondering yourself what's going on Montebello Park that day, that has to do with just educating people about hepatitis and the dangers. I also want to point out that this Wednesday is the first of our Roots and Rhythms series. It kicks off Wednesday, starting around 5 o'clock. Music is, I think, in 2 steps. First of all, a local performer of some sort, and then additionally, one of the main entertainers that have been hired. So that starts on the 15th. And also on Friday of this week is the very first movie in the park, weather provided, otherwise it will be movie on the floor of the arena. But it is Lilo and Stitch that's being presented, and it's being sponsored by Sam Osterhoff. So, in fact, each of the 4 movies have a sponsor this year, but Sam's is the first. So a couple of good things going on if you're looking for some family entertainment as well this week. Okay, so unless somebody has a new item of business, and seeing none, then we have nothing under confidential this evening. So, Councillor Riley, you have bylaws, and that will.
I do, Madam Mayor.
Please.
Moved by myself that leave be granted to introduce bylaw 2026-31, 2026-32, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Thank you. And someone to second the bylaws, please? Councillor Broderick? Okay. Call for the vote then, Mr. Clerk, please. And the vote should be in front of you. Okay, got everybody then? Okay, so that count. And so then, with all the business of this agenda being concluded, I'll declare this meeting adjourned at 9 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.